The Forgotten Rescue. The stars over Earth were calm that night, silent, peaceful. But beneath that calm sky, deep in the archives of the Terran Historical Institute, an old story was being told again. 300 years ago, the elderly historian's voice echoed through the grand hall. When Earth stood on the edge of extinction, help came from the darkness between stars. They called themselves the Zerani. A massive holographic projection filled the room, showing grainy footage of that distant war. Enemy ships, vast, spined monstrosities, closed in on Earth's fragile defense line. Humanity's fleets had been broken, cities burned under orbital bombardment. The end seemed certain, and then they appeared. From deep space, an alien fleet unlike anything humanity had ever seen emerged. Sleek silver ships moving in perfect formations. They cut through the enemy armada with precision and terrifying speed. In hours, the invaders were routed. In days, the skies were clear. And just as suddenly as they came, the Zerani vanished into the void, leaving only fragments of communication and a single promise exchanged between their leaders and Earth's survivors. One day, if ever our stars cry, you will answer. For centuries, that promise became a legend, half history, half myth. No one had seen the Zerani since. Far above the planet, on the Terran Galactic monitoring array, deep space scanners quietly swept the stars. It was a routine shift for Lieutenant Asha Kim. She sipped her lukewarm tea and watched the glowing data streams with bored eyes. Humanity had expanded across hundreds of systems. They were now a respected power within the Galactic Concord. Ancient rescue stories were something for children's books, not sensor screens. And then her console beeped. It was a small signal, faint, fragmented, wrapped in static. At first, she thought it was just background radiation. But the encryption header made her freeze. "Zerani?" she whispered. The signal was ancient, using protocols no one had seen for centuries. But the identifier was clear: ZRN-class distress. Her hands flew across the console. "Control, this is Array 7. I've got something strange. You'll want to see this." Within minutes, senior analysts crowded around her station. Data packets unraveled. Coordinates blinked into view. On the far edge of known space, deep in the uncharted regions beyond Concord patrols. "It's real," one of the analysts muttered, disbelief on his face. This is a Zerani distress call." The Galactic Concord received the news with a mixture of amusement and skepticism. The Concord, a coalition of alien powers, ruled much of known space. Humanity was a member, yes, but a relatively young one compared to the ancient empires. The Concord Council chamber was filled with alien voices debating the matter. "Old static." "A glitch," hissed a reptilian delegate from the Threx Dominion. "Fairy tales," another snorted. "The Zerani are extinct, even if it's real," added a glowing avian from the Lume Collective. "Their distress is centuries too late." Human Ambassador Elias Marek listened silently as the Council dismissed the signal one by one. To them, this was nothing more than background noise. But to humanity, it was a promise reignited. When it was his turn to speak, Marek stood slowly. His words were calm but firm. 3 centuries ago, they saved us when no one else did. We owe them. Earth does not forget. But the Council had no interest in deploying forces into uncharted space. Officially, the matter was dismissed. Unofficially, humanity made its decision that same night. In the Seoul Defense Command, lights burned through the night as preparations began. A single fleet was assembled in silence. No public announcements, no media coverage, no council briefings. The 5th Expeditionary Fleet, under Admiral Lin Wei, was chosen. It was a fast, adaptable force built for deep space operations. Lin stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Dreadnought Resolute, watching the star field ahead. "This isn't just a mission," she said to her officers. "This is a debt. One humanity has carried for generations." Her second-in-command, Commander Raj Patel, nodded gravely. "You think the Zerani are still out there?" Lin looked at the stars. They were real once, and someone out there is still calling for help. The fleet's departure was quiet. No grand speeches, just the silent roar of engines as warships slipped into the darkness beyond charted space. Days turned to weeks as they traveled deeper into the frontier. Navigation systems struggled with the sparse star maps. Communication grew patchy, but the signal grew stronger. Then, on the edge of the Nix expanse, the fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. "Admiral," the comm officer said, her voice tight, "we are picking up something. Very faint, but it's close." A weak transmission crackled through the speakers, static and distortion, but beneath it, a voice, high, melodic, alien. "Help! This is the Zerani. We are under siege. Anyone, please respond." The bridge fell silent. Every officer listened to that ancient, desperate call. Admiral Lin straightened in her chair. Her voice was steady. "Lock onto that signal. Prepare for course correction. We're going to find them." Outside the viewport, the darkness of uncharted space stretched endlessly. Somewhere out there, a centuries-old promise waited to be answered. The fleet adjusted formation and dove into the void. The human fleet drifted into the Nix expanse, a silent ocean of stars where no maps existed. Even the sensors struggled here. Space was thick with strange energy distortions, and gravity waves rippled unpredictably through the void. It was the kind of place where ships could disappear and never be seen again. Inside the flagship Resolute, Admiral Lin Wei stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the holographic star chart. The Zerani distress signal was close now, only a few light hours away, but something about it felt wrong. "Signal strength is increasing," the comm officer reported. "But, Admiral, there are echoes. Multiple reflections. Like the signal is bouncing through some kind of structure." "Structure," Lin repeated. "Yes, ma'am. It's not just open space. Something massive is out there, between us and the source." The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances. There shouldn't have been anything this deep into the expanse. No stations, no colonies, no records at all. The fleet advanced slowly, sensor drones flying ahead like scouts. As they closed the distance, the distortion cleared, and then suddenly it appeared on the main screen. Everyone fell silent. A colossal structure floated in the darkness. It wasn't a station, not exactly. It looked like a shattered ring, kilometers wide, broken into jagged fragments that still slowly rotated in silence. Old energy fields flickered weakly across its surface, like dying embers of something ancient. What is that?" Commander Raj whispered. "Scan it," Lin ordered. The science team worked quickly. The readings came back and made no sense. "Admiral, this is Zerani technology," the science officer said softly. "But it's old. Centuries old. Maybe older. Some parts are completely dead. Others are still running on minimal power." Lin leaned forward. "Is the signal coming from inside?" "Yes, deep within the central core fragment. But there's something else." The image zoomed in. Buried among the shattered pieces of the ring were wrecks. Ships, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Some were Zerani. Others were unknown, twisted into monstrous shapes, their hulls blackened and spiked like predators. The silence on the bridge turned heavy. "This was a battle," Raj said grimly. "A big one." The fleet held position as small reconnaissance vessels launched toward the structure. Their lights swept over broken corridors and silent halls. The Zerani designs were elegant and curved, almost like sculptures, but everything was cracked and scarred by weapons fire. One drone entered a large chamber, an ancient command hub. It floated through the airless room, scanning everything. A faint energy signature pulsed ahead. In the center of the chamber, a single beacon still blinked, weak but alive. "That's the signal source," the science officer confirmed. "It's a Zerani emergency transmitter. It's been repeating the same distress message for 312 years. 300 years? Raj asked in disbelief. "So this isn't a live distress call?" "No, Commander, it's an echo." The realization settled like a cold wind through the bridge, but before Admiral Lin could order a withdrawal, the lights on the beacon suddenly flared. "Admiral," the comm officer shouted. "Something just activated. Signal spike." The fleet's sensors lit up with data. The beacon wasn't just repeating, it had detected the human's presence. And in response, it started transmitting a new pattern. "It's opening a data channel," the science officer said, voice shaky. "But this code is strange. It's Zerani but fragmented, mixed with another language. Can we translate it?" Lynn asked. "We're trying." The translation came slowly, line by line, through the static. "To those who hear this, we are the last enemy at the gates. Do not answer. Run." The transmission cut off abruptly. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then the tactical officer whispered, "Admiral, we've got movement." From the shadows around the broken ring, contacts began to appear. At first, they were faint sensor blips, almost ghost-like. Then they multiplied, dozens, then hundreds. They were ships, but not Zerani. These were the same spiked, black-hulled designs they'd seen among the wreckage. "And they were waking up. They were hiding," Raj muttered. Alarms blared through the bridge. "They're powering weapons." "Shields up," Lynn barked. "All ships, defensive formation." Outside, the dark space came alive with light. The enemy vessels moved like predators, circling the human fleet. Their engines burned an unnatural crimson, and their hulls seemed to twist and reshape as they moved, like living metal. The first volley of energy beams slammed into the fleet's outer defense line. Explosions flared as shields took the impact. Multiple hits on Frigate 7. "Return fire," Lynn ordered. The calm exploration mission had become a desperate battle in seconds. Human warships fired plasma lances and kinetic torpedoes into the swarming enemy, carving through the first wave. But more kept coming, like a tide that had waited centuries to rise again. On the tactical map, Raj pointed at the core of the structure. "Admiral, look, some of those ships aren't moving toward us. They're moving toward the beacon. I think that's what they were guarding." Lynn's eyes hardened. "Then whatever is in there is important enough for them to kill over." She turned to the fleet. "We didn't come this far to turn back now. All ships, push through the perimeter. I want a path to that core." As the Resolute surged forward, weaving through debris and enemy fire, the beacon pulsed again, faster this time, as if trying to speak. On the comms, a single line of translated Zerani text flashed through. "If you hear us, the war is not over." The fleet plunged deeper into the dark battlefield, surrounded by wreckage and enemies that should have been long dead. Whatever had happened here centuries ago wasn't finished. It was only sleeping, and humanity had just woken it up. The human fleet pressed forward, leaving the shattered Zerani ring behind. Outside the viewport, the void seemed calm again, but Admiral Lin Wei knew better. "This is too quiet," she muttered. Commander Raj Patel, standing beside her, nodded. "Quiet means danger. Something's out there, and it's waiting." The sensors confirmed his fears. Beyond the ring's wreckage, countless energy traces flickered, hidden warp signatures, unmapped ships drifting in ambush. Nothing moved openly, but every trace told a story. The enemy had been watching. The fleet entered a region untouched by Concord patrols, deep in what humanity now called the Veil Expanse. It was a place where light bent strangely, and sensor signals distorted. Here, centuries of war had been fought in silence. An urgent comtone cut through the bridge. "Admiral, we're detecting massive structures across 3 sectors, fortified orbital platforms, but there's no record of them. The energy signatures. They're active, but no communications are being sent. It's like the systems are alive but silent." Lynn's brow furrowed. "Who could have built this?" The science officer hesitated. "We think it's the Kareth swarm, a machine hive species. They've been fighting the Zerani for generations, long before humanity entered the galaxy." Raj's eyes widened. "You mean the war never stopped?" "Exactly," said the officer. "It's been hidden. The Conquered didn't know. And apparently, the Zerani were holding a front line alone. All this time, the realization hit the bridge like a shockwave. Humanity had stumbled upon a war that the galaxy had ignored. Systems were lost, fleets destroyed, civilizations erased, all in silence. "Admiral," the tactical officer said, pointing at the holomap, "there's more. The swarm is not just defensive. They're gathering energy, massive power signatures. Some of these structures are weapons, enough to devastate a solar system if deployed. Lin's jaw tightened. Then our debt isn't just a rescue, it's a war we have to finish. The fleet's engines hummed with quiet determination. They were not here to negotiate. They were here to fulfill a promise, one made centuries ago. The first skirmish came without warning. Shadowy silhouettes warped through space, rising from sensor dead zones. The swarm's ships were strange, sleek, black and segmented like living machines. Their weapons glowed with cold blue energy. "Contacts! Bearing 120, a lieutenant shouted. "They're moving fast." The fleet reacted instantly. Human frigates deployed defense drones and plasma interceptors, engaging the first wave. The bridge shook as distant energy blasts ricocheted off the shields of the Resolute. "Hold formation," Lin ordered. "We need to get through to the Zerani core." The battle was brutal but brief. The human fleet's tactics were precise, their firepower overwhelming even for the swarm, yet for every ship destroyed, more appeared. Raj frowned. "Admiral, it's like they're endless." Lin's eyes hardened. "They aren't endless. They're waiting. They've been waiting for centuries, hidden to strike at anyone who interferes." The Resolute pressed forward, weaving through debris and enemy fire. Outside, starfields glimmered with distant explosions, the silent war erupting at last into open conflict. In a quiet moment, the communications officer played back intercepted swarm transmissions. They were not language, they were patterns, sequences of light and pulse. But the message was clear. Intruder detected, eliminate, protect the legacy. The swarm did not negotiate. They did not retreat. They did not care about diplomacy or treaties. "All right," Lin said softly. "They've made their choice. So have we." She looked over the fleet, each ship ready, crew tense but focused. "We came here to repay a debt. But if anyone tries to stop us, we finish this war. For the Zerani, for Earth, for everyone who depended on us centuries ago." The ship surged forward into the Veil expanse, entering the heart of the silent war. Shadows of enormous, twisted structures loomed ahead, their full size invisible until they emerged from sensor blind spots, and humanity realized just how much was at stake. The war had waited for centuries. Humanity had arrived. The human fleet had reached the heart of the Veil expanse. Around them, shadows of enormous alien structures stretched into the darkness, remnants of a war no one in the Galactic Concord had ever seen. Every ship in the fleet knew what lay ahead. This wasn't a reconnaissance mission anymore. "This is it," Admiral Lin Wei said quietly, standing on the bridge of the Resolute. Her eyes scanned the massive swarm installations ahead, glinting faintly with cold blue energy. "The first strike begins now," Commander Raj Patel nodded, tension tight in his shoulders. "All ships, prepare weapons. Target priority, forward command nodes." We cut their coordination first. The fleet fell into formation. Human dreadnoughts and frigates glowed under power-up sequences, kinetic torpedoes charging, plasma cannons ready. For centuries, the swarm had been hidden, but they were no match for human strategy and precision. The first wave hit without warning. Swarm vessels surged from hidden warp points, weapons flaring, engines screaming like living metal. They were designed to overwhelm, but the humans were faster, smarter, fire at will. Lin commanded. Energy lances and plasma torpedoes tore through the first enemy ships. Shields shimmered and failed under the precision strikes. Explosions painted the darkness with fire and light, illuminating the twisted, spiked forms of the swarm. The swarm responded with relentless aggression. Swarming drones swirled around the human fleet, striking at weak points. But humans moved with coordination, forming defensive grids and counterattack corridors that tore through the enemy lines. Even the Zerani's ancient designs, which had once inspired fear in the galaxy, seemed primitive compared to humanity's tactics. From the bridge, Lin watched the sensors carefully. "They're reorganizing," she said. "The swarm adapts faster than we thought. Raj, send drone squads to flank the outer perimeter. I want them distracted while our main strike group goes in." Raj relayed the orders. Human drones darted through the void, weaving between enemy ships, targeting critical nodes. Swarm vessels exploded in bursts of sparks and molten metal. The first strike was precise, brutal, and fast. For every swarm ship destroyed, humanity gained ground. Yet despite the damage, the enemy kept coming, seemingly endless, relentless, like a tide that had waited centuries to strike back. Suddenly, a massive shockwave rippled through the fleet. One of the dreadnoughts shook violently. Impact, multiple hits to Frigate 9. Alarms screamed, shields up. Disperse formation! Lynn barked. Red warning lights bathed the bridge as crew members scrambled to maintain control. The attack wasn't random. The swarm had anticipated the strike. Their command nodes were protected by automated defense systems, laser grids, energy cannons, and swarm drones that moved with terrifying precision. Lynn clenched her fists. They'd been preparing for this for centuries. But they didn't expect us. The fleet pressed on. Every ship coordinated like a single organism. Human firepower carved through the enemy lines, drones mapping weak points for the next strike. A tactical officer called out, "Admiral!" Enemy vessels retreating toward the central superstructure. "Good," Lynn replied. "Let them lead us." That's exactly where we want them. The Resolute led the strike group forward, weaving between debris, wreckage of old battles, and still active defense systems. Human pilots knew that hesitation could mean death, but hesitation was impossible. They were here for a promise made long ago, and they would not fail. From the shadows of the swarm's superstructure, energy fields flared. The massive machine hive responded to humanity's attack, but the first strike had already succeeded. The command nodes were destroyed, their coordination broken. Swarm vessels scattered, some retreating, some destroyed in panic. "Admiral," Raj said, voice tense but impressed, "the first strike!" "It worked. We've broken their forward line." Lynn allowed herself a brief nod. "It's only the beginning. The swarm underestimated humans. They thought we'd observe, negotiate, hesitate. We repay debts differently. The human fleet reformed, shields repaired, weapons recalibrated. Ahead lay the swarm's heart, a superstructure built to destroy entire star systems. The cost of failure was unthinkable, but failure was not an option. Beyond the battlefield, distant stars twinkled, indifferent to the struggle below. But the galaxy would soon remember this day. Humanity had struck first, with courage, skill, and a promise that had waited centuries to be honored. The silent war was no longer silent. Humanity had arrived. The first strike had shattered the swarm's forward lines, but the battle was far from over. In the depths of the Veil expanse, hidden fleets watched the humans attack with growing astonishment. For centuries, the smaller alien species, long oppressed by the swarm, had remained in hiding, terrified to act. Now humanity's bold strike ignited hope. From a remote star system, the Varelian fleet uncloaked, engines flaring. Their ships were sleek, smaller than humans or Zerani, but fast and deadly. Commander Solon, their fleet leader, sent a message to the human fleet. "Humans fight, and the galaxy remembers. We join you." On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Linway watched the new blips appear on the tactical map. "Raj, these weren't here a minute ago." "Who are they?" "Unknown at first," Raj said. "But they're attacking the swarm now. And look, they're coordinated, like they were waiting for a signal." The science officer analyzed their ship's patterns. "They've been hiding in the outer sectors, probably for decades. They've seen the swarms rise and feared involvement. But humanity, your first strike has inspired them." Lynn allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. "Then let's give them a reason to fight." The Varelian ships merged into the human formation. Their energy weapons cut through the swarm's defenses, hitting targets humans could not reach. Even the shattered Zerani structures seemed to awaken, scattered energy nodes, reigniting under coordinated fire. A comm officer reported a message from another source. "Admiral, the Zerani fleet in stasis." "It's responding to the signal as well. They're joining the battle." The bridge erupted with whispers and excitement. Humanity's decision to repay the ancient debt had triggered something remarkable. For centuries, the galaxy had watched the swarm rule unchecked. Now hidden allies were coming forward, inspired by human courage. The swarm responded with fury. Its ships accelerated, forming a defensive perimeter around its remaining strongholds. Laser beams lanced through the darkness, striking Virelian and human ships alike. Explosions flared, sending debris spinning through the void. Lin barked orders. All units maintain formation. Protect the Virelians. We need them alive to coordinate with the Zerani reinforcements. On the tactical map, she saw a breakthrough forming. The combined fleets were tearing gaps in the swarm's perimeter. Every strike opened a path closer to the heart of the enemy network. Meanwhile, communications from the Zerani survivors crackled through encrypted channels. Their leader, Captain Tivaran, spoke in a voice tinged with awe and relief. "Humans, we never imagined we would see you again. You honor the debt we thought forgotten. Together we may yet end this war." Lin looked at her officers. "This is more than a mission now. This is a turning point. The galaxy is waking, and we are leading it." Raj's hands moved over the tactical console. "Admiral, additional fleets are responding. I'm reading signals from smaller civilizations, ships that had never fought before. They're activating their weapon systems and moving to join us." Lin nodded. "Good, let them come. Every ally we gain makes the swarm weaker. Every ship fighting for freedom is another step toward victory." The battle intensified. Human and alien ships moved as one, striking with precision, coordinating attacks across sectors that had once been quiet for centuries. Swarm vessels attempted flanking maneuvers, but the combined fleet anticipated them. Laser fire, plasma bursts, and kinetic strikes lit the darkness like fireworks over the void. "Admiral," the communications officer said, "we're picking up massive energy surges at the swarm's central nodes. They're reacting to our combined assault." Lin clenched her fists. "Then it's time to push harder. All ships focus fire. The heart of their network is our target." As the fleet advanced, the human strategy revealed something even more significant. Humanity had not only repaid a debt, they had rekindled hope across the galaxy. Species who had been silent for centuries were now taking part in the fight. The Veil Expanse, once a silent graveyard of war, erupted into coordinated fury. The swarm, powerful as it was, had underestimated the influence of humans. They had forgotten that courage and action could inspire, and as the combined forces pressed deeper into enemy space, Lin realized something profound. Humanity did not just repay a debt. Humanity had awakened the galaxy itself. The echoes of battle resounded across the void, announcing to every corner of space the silent war was no longer hidden, and the galaxy was starting to fight back. The human fleet surged forward through the Veil Expanse, now joined by the Virelian and awakened Zerani ships. The combined armada stretched across kilometers of space, a testament to centuries of hidden hope and courage. Admiral Lin Wei stood on the bridge of the Resolute, her eyes scanning the tactical display. The swarm's defenses were weakening, but the enemy was far from defeated. Energy pulses flickered across their centralized network, alive, adaptive, and deadly. "This is it," Lin said quietly, almost to herself. "The heart of their empire." Commander Raj Patel glanced at her. "Admiral, the Zerani fleet is signaling. They're opening a direct communication channel." The main screen shifted to a holographic projection of Captain Tivaran, the ancient Zerani leader. Though centuries old, the projection flickered with clarity. His voice carried weight across the comm network. "Humans, you have come when we were weakest. The oath we made long ago, we never expected it to be remembered. And yet here you are." Lin's hand hovered over the console. "We remember. That promise was never forgotten. Not by Earth, not by humanity." Tivaren's projection glowed brighter, the ancient Zerani eyes reflecting relief and admiration. "Then the galaxy has hope. Join us. Together, we can end this." The revelation sent a ripple through the fleet. Every officer and crew member felt it. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fulfillment of a promise that spanned centuries. Humanity's courage had reminded the galaxy of its own forgotten commitments, awakening allies who had long hidden in fear. "Admiral," Raj said, "their oath, it binds them to us now. The Zerani will fight alongside humanity until the swarm falls." Lynn nodded, determination hardening in her eyes. "Then we move forward. No hesitation." The first strike was only the beginning. The combined fleet advanced on the swarm's central superstructure. Massive energy shields rippled across the alien constructs, but centuries of quiet war had left them brittle. Untested against such a coordinated force, human dreadnoughts led the assault, followed by Zerani vessels whose designs were elegant and deadly. Virelian fighters darted through the gaps, striking critical weak points. Each attack tore into the swarm's heart, each blow a reminder of humanity's resolve. The swarm counterattacked fiercely, unleashing waves of drones and energy beams. But the alliance held firm, using strategy, precision, and unity to keep the enemy off balance. As the battle raged, Lynn reflected on the significance of their mission. This was more than a war. It was a living memory of an ancient promise, a debt repaid not with words, but with action. Humanity had risked everything to answer a call that no one else remembered. Sensors picked up a new development. Deep within the central hub, dormant systems were powering up, long-forgotten Zerani war machines, waiting for the day allies would return. "Admiral," the tactical officer said, voice tight with excitement, "these systems, they're ours now. They recognize our fleet's presence." Lynn's jaw tightened. "Then it's time to remind the swarm what happens when they threaten those who keep their word." The human and Zerani forces combined their firepower. Energy pulses, plasma torpedoes, and coordinated strikes tore through the swarm's core. The enemy's defenses shattered under the unprecedented alliance. From the comm channels, Captain Tivaran's voice resonated. "The oath has been remembered. The debt is repaid. Let the swarm know that those who honor promises are never weak." Even the Virelians, long hesitant to act, roared their engines in unity, their fighters diving into the fray with newfound courage. The battle shifted. The swarm's machines faltered, its endless tide breaking against the human-led alliance. The galaxy's long-hidden war, once silent, now had a clear victor rising from the shadows. In the command chamber of the Resolute, Lynn looked at her crew. Exhaustion and tension were visible, but so was resolve. Humanity had reminded the galaxy of something important. Honor, courage, and keeping promises mattered more than fear. Raj leaned over. "Admiral, they're faltering. The swarm is retreating from the core." Lynn nodded. "Good. Hold the line. The heart of their empire is about to fall. And when it does, the galaxy will remember that humanity keeps its oaths." Outside the viewport, the void of space was alive with light and fire. The echoes of a centuries-old promise roared across the veil expanse. Humanity's fleet had arrived not just to fight, but to honor the oath, and the galaxy was finally listening. The combined human, Zerani, and Virelian fleets pressed forward relentlessly. The swarm's forces, once endless and menacing, were now fractured, scattered, and in retreat. The veil expanse, a graveyard of centuries, old battles, was alive with fire and energy as humanity's fleet carved a path to the heart of the enemy network. Admiral Lin Wei stood on the bridge of the Resolute, her hands gripping the console. Every officer's eyes were on the tactical display, which now showed the swarm's central superstructure, the core of its power, exposed and vulnerable. "Today," Lin said softly, her voice carrying across the bridge, "we repay a debt that has waited centuries. For Earth, for the Zerani, for everyone who was silenced by fear." Commander Raj Patel looked up. "The core defenses are down to 30%. If we hit them now, the swarm will collapse." "Then we hit them," Lin said. "The first strike was precise. Human dreadnoughts fired volleys of kinetic torpedoes and plasma lances at the swarm's central nodes. Zerani cruisers followed, energy beams cutting through the alien constructs with surgical accuracy. Virelian fighters weaved between gaps, striking vulnerable points and ensuring no enemy could escape. Explosions lit the void like distant supernovae. Sections of the swarm's core ruptured, energy surging outward in violent arcs. Drones fell in waves, their black segmented bodies shattered against human shields. "Forward units," Lin commanded. "Push into the core. The heart of the swarm must be destroyed." Inside the superstructure, the swarm's central intelligence flickered. It had learned to anticipate attacks, but it had never faced humans. The precision, the courage, the unity, it was unlike anything it had encountered in centuries of war. Its machines faltered. Commands became chaotic. "Admiral," Raj shouted, "they're breaking apart. Their systems failing." "Yes," Lin said, a spark of triumph in her eyes. "They underestimated us. Humanity never forgets. Humanity never surrenders. And humanity never breaks a promise." The final wave of swarm vessels attempted to regroup and strike the fleet's rear. But the Allied forces moved as one, cutting them off. Every attack, every defensive maneuver, every coordinated strike pushed the swarm closer to annihilation. In the midst of battle, Captain Tivaran's voice came through the comm channels, proud and emotional. "The oath has been honored. The debt repaid. Humanity, you have reminded us all why courage matters." Lin nodded silently. "It's done," she murmured. Sensors showed the final collapse of the swarm's superstructure. Energy cores exploded in brilliant arcs, ripping apart the remaining enemy vessels. The endless tide of the swarm had ended. Silence replaced the chaos. The Veil Expanse, long a graveyard, now stood as a monument to victory. The Allied fleets drifted among the debris, shields holding, weapons powered down, crew breathing heavily. The victory was total, but it came at a cost. Ships were damaged, crews exhausted, and the memory of centuries of hidden war hung over them like a shadow. Lin addressed her officers. "Today, we have done more than win a battle. We have honored promises that were almost forgotten. We have proven that humanity stands by its word. And we have reminded the galaxy that courage, honor, and action matter." Raj smiled faintly. "The swarm is gone, the debt repaid." The bridge fell silent for a moment, as if the crew were absorbing the magnitude of what had happened. A centuries-old promise had finally been fulfilled. Humanity had arrived not just to fight, but to honor a legacy. Across the expanse, the surviving Zerani ships pulsed with renewed energy. Hidden fleets that had once cowered in fear now moved openly, inspired by humanity's courage. The galaxy, long silent, had been awakened. Admiral Lin looked out the viewport at the distant stars. "This is not just a victory," she said quietly. "It's a warning and a promise. Humanity keeps its word, and if the galaxy ever forgets, we will remind it." The fleet began its slow return, battered but triumphant. The Veil Expanse, once a grave of silence, had become a symbol of hope, courage, and enduring honor. The Veil Expanse lay quiet, scarred by the collapse of the swarm. Human, Zerani, and Virelian fleets drifted among the debris, engines humming, shields still flickering from battle. For centuries, silence had ruled here. Now a new era was beginning. Admiral Lin Wei stood on the bridge of the Resolute, eyes scanning the remnants of the swarm's empire. Every star in the distance seemed sharper, brighter, as if the galaxy itself had taken a deep breath. "Status report," Lin commanded. "Swarm remnants neutralized," Commander Raj Patel replied. "Allied fleets intact, no critical losses beyond expectations. Their core is destroyed," Lin nodded slowly. "Then humanity has done more than repay a debt. We've reshaped the balance of power. The galaxy will remember this day." In distant systems, the news spread like wildfire. Subjugated species who had lived in fear of the swarm now celebrated. Star systems once trapped under machine tyranny whispered the name of the humans who had dared to act, who had kept an ancient promise, and who had led the galaxy to victory. The Galactic Concord, which had dismissed humanity as a minor player for centuries, now convened in emergency. Council chambers across star systems filled with whispers and alarm. How had humans achieved this? How had a single species, long underestimated, defeated what many believed invincible? The answer was simple. Humans never forget, humans never surrender, and humans honor their debts. On the Resolute, Lynn observed the fleet returning to formation. Even in victory, she knew vigilance was necessary. The galaxy was vast, and hidden threats could emerge at any time. Yet for the first time, humanity had demonstrated that it could not be ignored. Raj leaned on the console beside her. Admiral, the Zerani have sent a proposal. They want a permanent alliance, with humanity at its center. Lynn's eyes gleamed. Then we lead, not as conquerors but as guardians. The galaxy has changed, and humanity will guide it, with honor. As the fleets departed the Veil Expanse, ships across the galaxy witnessed human power and strategy firsthand. Empires trembled, but not out of fear of conquest. They trembled because they had underestimated what humanity would do to keep a promise. Every system, every species that had once dismissed Earth as insignificant, now knew a simple truth. Humans are not negotiable. They are relentless, and they honor their word above all else. In the quiet moments aboard the Resolute, Lynn reflected on the journey. The forgotten rescue, the silent war, the allies awakened, all had led to this. Humanity had not only repaid a centuries-old debt, they had carved a new order among the stars the galaxy would never forget. Stars gleamed like watchful eyes, witnessing a new era. And at its center, humanity stood unyielding, a force both respected and feared, a species that shapes destiny by action, honor, and courage. The debt was repaid. The galaxy was awake. The age of humanity had truly begun.